The fire in the forge at Harrenhal had guttered to embers, staining the cavernous vault in a thin, restless glow. Smoke coiled in the rafters like long, lazy fingers refusing to unclasp, while sparks winked and died upon the beaten earth. Somewhere in the upper galleries, a raven croaked a low complaint before falling still. Night pressed at the broken walls, and the breeze carried the scent of iron, straw, and distant rain. Arya Stark stood alone beside an anvil black with soot, her palms hot from clutching the heavy hammer she had no right to wield. She listened for footsteps. Soldiers, servants, anyone who might wonder why the smallest cupbearer in Lord Tywin's retinue lingered so late. But the silence was complete. All day she had darted underfoot like a mouse, filling goblets and fetching missives, waiting for the sun to sink. Now darkness wrapped Harrenhal, and she felt the castle ease from its rigid posture of day into something soft, almost breathing. Jaqen appeared without sound, as he always did, a ribbon of shadow sliding free of a pillar. Firelight caught the silver-red strands of his hair, and his eyes seemed two flakes of moonstone set into a face carved smooth by still water. He studied the child before him, head tilted in that slight bird-like way of his, as though Arya might sprout wings or claws if he stared long enough. "A girl did summon a man," he said at last, voice as gentle as oil poured over steel. Arya's heart thumped, but she did not flinch. "I did. You promised 3 deaths. A promise is a debt, and debts must be paid," Jaqen replied. "It is known." She had used 2 names already, Whis the overseer with his flailing whip, and Chiswick the laughing lout whose stories dripped filth. One name remained, one death owed. She had long thought to speak Sir Emery Lorsch, yet Sir Emery's end had come without her. The lion's own poisoned letter had betrayed him, and so the debt between them hung unresolved, suspended by a single, silent heartbeat. But something else had taken root in Arya's mind, as sly and secret as a fox beneath snow. Another path, darker, deeper, leading far from Harrenhal's scorched bones. Her dreams were no longer of home but of a city of towers where her father's blood had soaked the stones. She tasted the copper every night, and she thought of names, so many names. Joffrey Baratheon, who called himself king, Cersei Lannister, whose smile was a blade's edge, Ilyn Payne with a headsman's sword, Meryn Trant, whose hand had struck her sister. Each name beat in her skull like a drum calling men to war. When she spoke again, her voice was thin but steady. "There are more names in King's Landing." Jaqen's brow arched. The forge cracked, exhaling a burst of sparks. "More than one," he observed. 3, Arya answered. 3 names, 3 deaths. You said a life is owed for a life. Then take me instead. My life for 3. But make it the right 3. The man turned, the folds of his cloak whispering. He paced a small circle about the anvil. The way a cat loops the prey, it has no wish to flee. "A life for many lives," he mused, tasting the words. "The coin is heavy. A girl would leave Harrenhal." "I would," Arya said. "I'll serve you, carry water, do whatever you ask. Take me to King's Landing. Let me choose the names." "Ratararnine. That's to you." Jaqen's silence felt like snowfall, soft but unrelenting. At last he looked upon her and smiled the faintest smile, more a suggestion than an expression. "The many-faced god is generous," he said. "He hears the girl's offer. But death's ledger never comes cheap. I'll pay." "How?" Arya opened her palm. In it rested a single iron coin, crude, unlovely, stamped with a stranger's visage. She had found it in the straw of her pallet days before, though she could not recall when or how it slipped into her keeping. Somehow, she knew it belonged to him. She closed her fingers over the coin once more. With this, something flickered in Jaqen's pale eyes. A candle stirred by unseen breath. "Valar Morghulis," he whispered. Arya did not know the word's true shape, only their sound. "Valar Dohaeris," she answered. The forge groaned, the night itself seeming to lean closer. Jaqen inclined his head. "A girl shall have her 3. But the path is long and the shadows deep. Once walked, it may not be walked back. I don't want to walk back. Then come. He extended a hand whose fingers were strong and stained by dye or blood, or both. Arya placed her small, calloused hand into his. The pact, once offered, now sealed itself in silence. They left Harrenhal in the hour before dawn, slipping through postern gates while the sentries drowsed. Mist clung to the godswood, draping the burned weirwood in veils of white that hid its wounds. Arya threw one last glance at the castle's blackened towers, each a jagged tooth gnawing at the pearl-gray sky. Somewhere within those walls, Gendry slept among the anvils. Hot pie dreamed of bread, and the ghosts of her family drifted. But she tasted King's Landing upon the wind, hot, filthy, and alive. She did not look back again. They traveled as father and son, an aging bravo with streaked hair and his mute apprentice. Jaqen cut the half-helm from Arya's dark locks, leaving her shaggy and sexless. Her cheeks he smeared with ash, her clothes with dust, so she seemed one more road urchin no one would notice. At waystones and crossroads inns, she fetched tankards and scrubbed tables while he listened. He never spoke of their real purpose, yet his questions to travelers always brushed the same theme. Who rode the King's Road? What banners camped beside what rivers? How many wagons passed the city gates each dusk? He gathered whispers like seed, and locked them behind his quiet smile. Nights they slept beneath hedgerows, and Jaqen told her of the faces death wears. Sometimes he spoke in riddles. A worm becomes a butterfly, yet in the cocoon it weeps. Other times in cruel clarity, explaining the pulse that beats in a man's neck, the way breath rattles when lungs collapse. He taught her to move like drifting snow, to mimic a stranger's gait by studying the set of his shoulders. He made her hold a dagger pressed flat to her own palm until the steel's chill grew warm. A girl must make the blade her breath, he said. When the time comes, it should not feel foreign. But he offered more than killing lessons. He taught her tongues. The lilting vowels of Lys, the clipped consonants of the East. He taught her to read the thousand small tales a face can tell. Every man is a story written in flesh, he murmured, tapping the corner of her eye where, someday, laughter lines would spider. Read, and you shall know where to write the ending. They crossed the Trident beneath a waning moon. River fog coiled about their ankles as they forded, and Arya recalled stories of the last time Stark blood watered these currents. She shivered, though the water was only knee-deep. Jaqen watched her with that same quiet patience. He knew ghosts rarely drowned. They rode a man's shoulders whether he feared them or not. On the King's Road south of Duskendale, they fell in with a merchant convoy, 10 wagons draped with striped canvas, smelling of cinnamon and cured fish. The master had a lazy eye and a shrewd mouth. He hired Jaqen as extra sword and Arya as scullion, granting them a place beside the spice crates. The coin was scant, but the wagons offered cover. Each night the teamsters built a communal fire, and she crouched beside them, listening to their songs of home and hearth. One rough-voiced woman spoke of King's Landing as a serpent coiled round the Blackwater, its gold scales bright yet fanged with want. Another swore the Lannisters minted more widows than coins. Arya chewed on those words, tasting their bitterness. 5 leagues north of the city walls, the convoy met the royal patrol. Gold cloaks gleaming, helms' breastplates polished bright as beacons. They spilled upon the road like molten brass. Their lieutenant wore a scar from nose to ear, red and swollen, as though cut fresh each dawn. He questioned every driver, inspected every crate. When he came to the wagon where Arya crouched, he speared her with a glance. "Boy," he barked, "your master's name." Arya's throat went dry, but Jaqen stepped forward. "His name is his own," he said lightly, "yet I call him Mouse, for he eats little and squeaks not at all." His smile flickered. The lieutenant grunted, amused perhaps by the insolence or simply bored, and moved on. That night the convoy camped within sight of the city, torches shimmering against the black mass of its walls. Arya barely tasted her supper of onion broth. In the distance King's Landing sprawled, 1,000 pinpricks of lantern light arrayed along hills and valleys like constellations fallen to earth. She imagined the Red Keep perched at its summit, cold and pitiless as a crown of stone. Somewhere within, Joffrey laughed. She felt the noise as a knife behind her ribs. They entered by the Dragon Gate among droves of small folk returning from fields. The stench struck first: night soil, tanner's lye, horse droppings, sweat and sea brine. Arya wrinkled her nose but breathed deep. The smell told her she was here, in the belly of the beast. Cobbled lanes twisted upward like veins toward the hill of Visenya. Beggars squatted in archways, eyes dull as river mud. Sellers cried wares, eels wrapped in pastry, carved hawthorn charms against pox. Rats on skewers crisped over charcoal. Jaqen guided her through the chaos with a gloved hand at her shoulder. Eyes open, ears wide, he murmured. Let the city speak. The convoy unloaded near the fishmonger square. Coin changed hands. The master dismissed them with a nod. Jaqen led Arya south into a warren of alleys. So narrow the sky became a thread of gray. They stopped before a crooked door painted with a faded black moon. Inside, the scent of incense coiled with smoke from a brazier. A woman in voluminous purple robes regarded them from a divan. Her face veiled, save for eyes lined in shimmering kohl. She and Jaqen spoke in whispers Arya could not parse. Valerian perhaps, or something older. When they finished, the woman clapped twice. From a back curtain scuttled a spry, wongy dwarf carrying bundles of cloth. He measured Arya with brisk gestures, then thrust garments into her arms. Tunic of coarse wool, patched breeches, a leather jerkin scarred by long use. Last came a cap with ear flaps, perfect for hiding hair and shape. Cloth makes the man, Jaqen told her after they left. But manners seal the guise. From this breath forth, you are Aran of the Hook, rat-catcher's orphan, mute by birth. Arya nodded. She had played so many parts: cookbearer, stable boy, weasel. But this one felt different. This role would shape deaths, not merely conceal life. They took lodging in a rickety loft above a cooper's shop near Flea Bottom. The floorboards slanted like a deck in storm, and rats rustled in the thatch. But the place overlooked 3 crossings of the main thoroughfare. Jaqen spent the next day charting their surroundings, mapping alley and sewer alike. Arya followed, memorizing gutters where filth pooled and windows that never shuttered fully. Each crack in stone became a promise. That evening, Jaqen set 3 candles upon a barrel and lit them. He placed beside them a shallow dish of water, its surface black and still. A prayer first, he said, though the word prayer tasted strange in his voice. Into the dish, he dripped 3 beads of red wax, each hardening into a floating scarlet seed. 3 lives for one. He looked at Arya. Speak the names. Arya wanted to blurt them. Joffrey, Cersei, Ilyn Payne. But the names stuck. Her throat tightened with memory of her father's last breath. The hush before the roar of the crowd. She closed her eyes. Sir Meryn Trant, she whispered. The coward had beaten Sansa on the orders of a monster, yet enjoyed the cruelty as though it were sport. The Hound, she almost said, but Sandor Clegane was gone from the city, last Arya knew, and he had saved her sister, though for reasons dark and selfish. She pushed him aside. Ilyn Payne, she spoke. The headsman. The moment his name left her lips, she saw the great sword flash silver in sunlight. Third, her voice wavered. Would Joffrey's death alone satisfy the ledger of wrongs? If the king fell by unknown hand, the city would bleed innocence in retribution. Better Cersei, then, the viper, in the basket. Queen Cersei Lannister. The words floated like wax upon the water, staining it crimson. Jaqen bowed his head. 3 names, he intoned. 3 faces to close. 3 songs to silence. The many-faced god accepts. He snuffed each candle and darkness folded around them, broken only by moonlight skimming the dish like a blade edge. Outside, King's Landing howled. A chorus of dogs, drunkards, and distant bells. Arya lay on straw, tasting the names again and again until they were salt on her tongue. She wondered if her father would approve. She feared more that he might not. Days slid together like cards shuffled by an unseen dealer. Each dawn Jaqen assigned her tasks. She swept the cooper's yard, fetched broth from the inn 2 doors down, scoured grime from chamber pots. But these were only the cloth dressing the dagger within. When the city's pulse quickened near dusk, he led her out among the crooked lanes, teaching her to dissolve into crowds. They observed the gold cloaks changing watches at River Gate, counted the steps from sept to stable in the Baylor Plaza, marked the schedules of palanquin bearers that bore the queen's favorites up and down the street of silk. Sir Marin Trant proved simplest. He lodged in the Tower of the Hand, yet every third night visited a brothel called the Peach in the city's heart, escorted by twin guards grown lazy from routine. Jaqen and Arya watched from atop a slanted roof across the lane. Rain pattered, blurring lamps to golden smudges. Trant emerged slouched with wine, though his companions trod straight. Arya's fingers itched around the throwing knife hidden in her sleeve, but Jaqen clicked his tongue. Too public, too soon. Death must be a lesson, not a screaming brawl. Ilan Payne seldom left the Red Keep except to practice cutting straw men in the butts. He rode a gaunt gray gelding, his cloak sewn with the crowned stag, but his face struck Arya hardest, cheeks sunken, eyes pale as fog, and a mouth that never moved. Jaqen murmured rumors. Payne's tongue, torn out years before by Mad King Eris. The many-faced god's humor, perhaps, that the silent night must speak only with steel. Queen Cersei proved the knotted thread. Guards thorned her path. Spies sniffed her steps. She sat in council half the day and drank the other half behind towering doors. To reach her, one must pass walls within walls. Jaqen watched the queen's barge drift along the river one hot afternoon, its silken canopy fluttering like a wounded swan. "She believes herself untouchable," he said softly. "That belief blinds more sharply than moonlight on snow." Weeks passed. Summer deepened, wilting banners and tempers alike. Flea bottom seethed, cooking in its own refuse. Arya learned shortcuts through sewer tunnels, where the ceiling bowed so low, she crawled on hands and knees, pushing aside roots that dangled like dead men's hair. She learned to read the sky's color. Rust red at dawn signaled calmer gates. Bright blue cast coins into hungry palms. She learned the names of every wharf rat between the hook and the gate of the gods, paying in stolen crusts for whispered gossip. All the while, the 3 names circled her dreams. Sometimes, she saw them seated upon a single bench, sharing wine as friends ironic and cruel. She crept behind them with needle, yet when she struck the blade passed through without wound. They turned, laughing, and their faces slid away like masks. Beneath was only darkness and the echo of her own breath. Jaqen never hurried. He spent hours brewing inks and dyes, staining cloth until it transformed in hue. One twilight he painted his own face, layer upon layer. Arya watched the man she knew melt away into a weathered cell sail with broken nose and patchy beard. "A face is a door," he told her. "Open it, and a man walks another room." He handed her a tiny vial of pale solution. "When the moment comes, paint thyself unseen." The liquid smelled of vinegar, and something sweetly rotten. She practiced with needle, though Jaqen insisted the blade was loud. Too loud. "A dagger no longer than a finger's span," he advised. "Steel bright as dawn. Quick in, quiet out." Yet Arya clung to her sword. She whispered its list of names each night, sharpening both steel and memory together. Choices hovered like crows upon a corpse. Trant was easiest prey. His death might pass as brothel quarrel. Payne, more thorny. He seldom risked the streets, but if lured. As for the queen, Jaqen counseled patience bordering on reverence. "Every castle has a door no one sees," he assured her. "Find it, and the walls crumble like pastry." Arya wondered often about the cost. She had offered her life, yet Jaqen demanded no blood. Some nights she lay awake listening to the city breathe, and feared that coin would come due when the 3rd name hushed its last gasp. Would he turn to her then, whisper her deeds had purchased only his passage home? Or worse, would he beckon her onward, deeper into shadows where even Arya Stark forgot the sound of her own name? Rain fell for 3 straight days, drowning the gutters and churning Flea Bottom into a slurry of mud and bile. On the 4th, the clouds parted, and the city emerged glistening like something newborn. though its stink remained. Jaqen returned from the upper market carrying a bundle under his cloak. He laid it on the loft floor, unwrapped rough canvas. Inside gleamed 3 white masks carved of wood. Blank, eyeless, featureless. "A girl must choose which face shall slay which name," he said. Arya lifted one mask. Its surface was smooth as riverstone, cool beneath her fingers. "Why 3? Balance. Trant shall die beneath the smile of mercy, pain beneath the frown of judgment, Cersei beneath the face with no eyes at all." He tapped the 3rd mask, its sockets hollow. "See without seeing." She touched that last mask last, almost fearing it would speak. "They look the same. 2 ears that cannot hear, yes, yet each tells the wind a different lie." "You'll wear them," Arya assumed. Jaqen shook his head. "No. The debt is paid by the hand that owes." He looked at her, and in his gaze she saw the reflection of 1,000 lonely paths. "A girl will take the faces." Her mouth dried. "I'm not ready." "Then prepare." He left her with the masks and descended into the city, silent. Arya stared until the planks blurred. She wanted to protest that she was old enough to hate but too young to kill. Yet she had killed before, or thought she had. Though the stable boy's eyes haunted her less each day, now the faces seemed to breathe, urging her forward. That night she clutched needle and crept to the roof. The sky blazed with stars, hard and cold and far. She stabbed them one by one with her gaze, naming her father, her mother, Robb, Bran, Rickon, Sansa, Jonda. Each name was a star she could not reach. Then she named Joffrey, Cersei, Trant, Pain Dejol. Those she vowed to pull down. Below, the city spread like a tapestry woven of torchlight and darkness, its patterns shifting with every gust of wind. Somewhere in the labyrinth, Sir Meryn Trant slept off wine, and Ilyn Payne polished a blade, and Queen Cersei dreamt of lions ruling wolves. Arya breathed the hot night air and imagined weaving her own thread through the tapestry, snagging each bright thread of life until whole sections unraveled. The day chosen for Trant reckoning dawned, sweltering. Heat shimmered off rooftops and turned the gutters rank. Arya donned the simplest mask, blank face, faint smile etched by the grain of wood. She strapped a narrow dagger inside her left sleeve, its hilt wound in cloth to muffle scrape against bone. Over mask and blade she pulled a hooded cloak, stained the color of rotted straw. "Do'ei." Jaqen inspected her briefly, adjusted the tilt of her hood. "Breathe slow. Let the heart move the hand." They parted near the street of silk. Jaqen melted among revelers and hawkers, trusting her path. Arya eased into line with afternoon crowds surging toward the brothel district. She walked soft, each footfall measured. The mask's eye slits hemmed her vision, forcing her world into a tunnel. She found it strangely calming. The wide clamor contracted to a single road, a single door ahead. At dusk, the peach swung alive with lantern glow. Minstrels struck lutes on a low balcony, their music drowned by laughter below. Sellswords clanked and swaggered. Perfumed women beckoned from curtained alcoves. Arya perched upon a low stone wall across the lane, cloak pulled about her ankles, and waited. Sir Meryn Trant arrived as predicted, preceded by 2 guards, both broad of shoulder, lean of wit. The knight's breastplate shone, but his eyes were dull. He swaggered, hand upon sword hilt more for show than readiness. They vanished through the arched door. Arya counted heartbeats. 100, 2, 3. She slid from the wall and crossed the muddy street, slipping through revelers like a fish in reeds. Inside, scented smoke enfolded her. Silks draped every beam. Feathers dusted her hood. A plump woman in a brocade gown bustled forward, but Arya lowered her head, showing no coin. The madam dismissed her with a sniff, turning to richer prey. Arya moved deeper, cat quiet. Voices echoed up a spiral stair. She climbed. The second floor smelled of spiced wine and sweat. Curtains of gold beads shielded private chambers. She paused at one, listening. A girl's laugh, too high and forced, squeaked within. Trant slurred praise followed. Arya's pulse quickened. She pressed forward. Near the end of the gallery, A door unlatched. One guard emerged, scratching his belly, searching perhaps for relief from the heat. Arya stepped back into shadow, heart thrashing. The guard glanced her way, saw only a cloaked beggar child, snorted, and lumbered toward the privy stairs. The gallery emptied. Now, she glided to Trant's door. From inside rose thick breathing. The guard remaining within chuckled, a deep rumble of anticipated delight. She palmed her dagger. The wood mask cooled her sweat. It is too soon, she thought. Yet the mask smiled. Her fingertips touched the latch, and she froze. Not with fear, but with a sudden, crystalline vision of the other names. Payne in the yard might note Trant's passing. The Queen might tighten security. One strike now could spoil the other two. The face is a door. Open it, and a man walks another room. Jaqen's words rang. She let go the latch, stepped away. Retreat was agony sharpened by pride. But pride could not taste blood. She exited as she had come, one breath at a time, until the peach's doorway swallowed her into night. The moon hung fat and white. Arya shoved into a blind alley, tearing off the mask. Tears burned unbidden. She had come so close. Yet some deeper sense of rhythm held her hand. Perhaps hers, perhaps the gods. She pressed her back to damp stone, sweat cooling to ice. Footsteps. She stiffened, but Jaqen slipped into view, no more solid than moonlight. A girl chose not to kill, he observed. Not accusation, merely fact. I will, she rasped. Not yet. Wise. He offered a water skin. She drank, tasting orange peel and mint. The mask felt heavy, like stone. It is fear. Let the weight settle. It becomes strength. He inclined his head toward the distant hill of Baylor, where the sept rose ghostly. Another path opens. Arya wiped her cheeks, ashamed yet renewed. I'll be ready, she said. Jaqen's smile was a fleeting shadow. So you shall. Summer's heat finally broke in a thunderstorm that cracked the sky into lurid shards. Rain slashed rooftops, flooded kennels, beat drums upon every shutter. In the loft, Arya lay awake, listening to water hammer the slates overhead. Each bolt of lightning stuttered through cracks, illuminating the three masks perched in a row. For an instant she saw them not as lifeless wood but as faces in council. Judging her hesitation, she rose, paced barefoot, the floorboard chill soothing her fevered soles. Murmurs of the street drifted upward, curses as stalls collapsed, laughter from those too drunk to flee the deluge. She thought of Sansa in the Red Keep, hair brushed, tears concealed, while storms brewed greater than weather. She wondered whether her sister felt each tremor of approaching war. Surely Sansa's heart must sense the death Arya now stalked. At dawn, Jaqen summoned her to the dismal courtyard behind the coopers. Mud puddled Kaffir deep. There he had set 3 clay jugs upon stumps. He placed the masks atop them. Strike, he commanded, tossing her the dagger. In rain's thin light, the blade gleamed. Arya hesitated, then lunged. The first jug shattered, shards spinning. She pivoted, stabbed the second. Crack flares of clay spidered. Water spurted like blood. The third she split in a single thrust, mask flying to slap mud. When silence returned, she knelt, panting. Jaqen retrieved the fallen mask. A shallow gash scored its cheek. He ran a thumb along the wound. Imperfections teach, she said. Next time, no slip. She nodded, heart steady. The rain eased to drizzle. Somewhere in the city, bells tolled prime, morning prayers. Payne would be sparring now, muscles limber, greatsword whistling through damp air. An idea struck her like a sparrow alighting upon a branch. Payne's solitude could be his doom, and the mute knight might not foresee a faceless apprentice within the butts. She pictured, slipping among squires carrying straw dummies, masked as one more page. The thought quickened her breath. Ser Ilyn first, she said aloud. Jaqen met her gaze, measured, then nodded once. They spied the yard for days. A colonnade overlooked the practice grounds, guarded by 2 sentries bored to yawn. Squires fetched blunt blades for their lords, scurrying like ants across red gravel. Pain drilled away from crowds, each stroke deliberate. His movement was strange, fluid yet mechanical, as though music played only in his head. In the prince's wood outside the city, Jaqen demonstrated a poison distilled from seeds of pale ivy found clinging to crypt walls. A droplet on the tongue induced paralysis within 30 heartbeats, followed by a calm descent into the long night. "Kind," he remarked. But Arya refused. She wanted Pain to know death, to taste the edge he'd granted her father. She would take him with steel, looking into his eyes. So Jaqen taught silence. Walk hill-toe, match breath to footfall, step only when wind or distant clamor masks the sound. He bound bells to her wrists, tiny, relentless. At first they rang with every twitch. By week's end she could climb a stair without stirring a chime. The night before their attempt, Arya sat cross-legged before the eyeless mask. She ran a whetstone along needle, though she knew the small sword might fail against plate. Still, its comfort mattered more than its bite. She recalled Jon Snow gifting the blade, his smile gentle and proud. Stick them with a pointy end. Simple wisdom, yet livelier than all of Jaqen's riddles. Sleep eluded her. She thought instead of Winterfell's godswood, red leaves drifting upon still water. If she died tomorrow, would her spirit find the heart tree? Or would she wander these narrow streets forever? Mask upon mask, forgetting even which voice was hers. She pressed fingertips to her face, feeling the shape of her own bones. "I'm Arya," she whispered. "I'm a wolf." She tried to believe it. Morning sun sliced pale across the red keep, but a cool breeze hinted at autumn's approach. Arya entered with the straw carriers, shoulders stooped, wearing the eyeless mask beneath a grubby hood. Jaqen remained outside the walls. This kill was hers alone. She bore a straw archery target on her back, needle tucked within her sleeve, a dagger sheathed at the small of her spine. The yard reeked of oiled leather and sweat. Sparrows flitted along roof tiles, indifferent. Pain stood apart, greatsword whispering arcs into air. No squire accompanied him. His head swiveled slowly, as if scanning threats unseen. Arya crossed the yard, placing the target where she'd been shown, then slipped behind a rack of blunted pikes. From there she watched. That taut eye. Breathe. Wind gusted. A clang of distant hammer. She wove through shadows, a gap between columns. Pain pivoted, blade poised, but his gaze passed over her, seeing only another boy burdened with tasks. She drew nearer. 10 strides. 9 Dadawa. 8 tore. Her heart hammered. The mask's eye slits warped a scene, Pain massive, weapon glistening. She slid needle free. A whistle blew. 2 knights barked laughter. Pain resumed his drill. She crept. 5 strides. Firm. Door. Needle's point bristled like a captive bee. 3. She tasted copper, bit her tongue. 2. Pain halted mid-swing, turning. His eyes met hers, pale, unreadable. 1. Tato. She lunged. Needle kissed chainmail, slid between rings at the armpit gap just as Pain raised his sword. His mouth opened. Soundless. Blood pooled glossy black. He swung, but strength drained. Arya withdrew, darted aside. Pain staggered, kneeling. She circled, planted dagger hilt deep beneath his jaw. Steel entered soft palate. Exit thought. His eyes widened, then glassed. Silence shattered. A squire screamed. Knights rushed. Arya rose, mask expressionless, blood dripping like red rain. She stepped back, into curtain of chaos. Someone grabbed her cloak. She wriggled free, slicing tendon with her sleeve blade. Shouts roared, but she slipped through training dummies up a half stair, over wall rubble. Her feet found grooves she had mapped nights before. She was water, fleeing the cup. Alarms clanged. The yard shrank behind her, filled with frantic men. She reached a postern arch, darted through, emerged into herb garden. Beneath lavender stalks she crawled to a culvert-draining kitchen scullery. The stench no longer reached her. Her senses burned clean. She wriggled into darkness, rats scattering. Only there did she dare breathe deep. Pain was dead, Fate closed one eye. Two remained. Hours later, in the loft's safe gloom, Arya scrubbed hands raw. Water clouded pink. Jaqen watched, unreadable. "A song has ended," he said. She lifted her face, streaked with tears she had not felt. "I stabbed him twice." "He needed twice," Jaqen replied. Something inside her lurched. Joy, shame, power. "They'll hunt me now." "Hunt shadows." He set the mask upon the plank table. "Fear not the lion's roar. Fear the silence when it starves." Arya wrapped arms around herself, trembling. "One more mask, one more name." "Two," he reminded. "Ser Meryn next, the queen last. Balance." He placed the mask of faint smile before her. "Death smiles, that men may see their reflection." She traced the carved lips. They seemed almost kind. "I'll wear it tonight." "No." Jaqen's voice softened. "Rest. Sharpen the point within. Tomorrow the peach sings anew to what?" Arya closed her eyes, and the world tipped like a boat upon storm waves. She remembered Pain's final look, not fear, but puzzlement. Perhaps he had accepted death long before, waiting only to meet the hand chosen to deliver it. She wondered whether her face, behind eyeless wood, had been the last thing he saw. Outside, King's Landing beat on, unaware that one instrument of its cruelty lay cooling beneath a torn sky. The queen would wake soon, sip wine flavored with tears of bliss, and plan defensive power built on bones. Ser Meryn would sink deeper into brutish comforts. None knew a wolf padded their halls, wearing faces borrowed from death itself. Arya Stark of Winterfell lay upon straw and listened to her heartbeat. Each throb whispered the same vow. One name, then another, until the ledger balanced and the wolf could lift her head to howl. But in the dimness, a smaller voice flickered. "When the list ends, what remains of Arya?" She hugged that question close, knowing it had claws sharper than any blade. Night slipped through cracked shutters, wrapping her like a cloak. Far away, bells tolled the hour of ghosts. She dreamt of snow falling upon the red keep. Silent, soft, endless, burying all towers beneath white. In that dream she walked alone, leaving no footprints, her face smooth as the moon. And so the game quickened, though few yet felt the ripple. One name crossed from list to legend. Two stood in stark relief against the gathering dusk. In a loft above a cooper's shop, a girl sharpening a thin sword felt the city's weight settle upon her narrow shoulders and did not bow. For wolves are born to carry winter. Jaqen. The day after Cerilyn's death dawned with a sky as colorless as tin. Yet the city woke loud as ever, unaware that one of its direst swords had fallen silent forever. Traders trundled barrels of pickled fish toward the markets. Apprentices clattered shutters open. Gulls circled the masts below the quays, laughing at secrets only they understood. But high upon the hill of Rhaenys, beside the hissing brazier in their slanted loft, Arya's world had narrowed to the gleam of the mask lying in her lap and the rhythm of the whetstone against her dagger. Every rasp was a heartbeat. Every heartbeat drew her nearer to Ser Meryn Trant. Jaqen brewed chicory in a dented copper pot, humming under his breath. But his gaze never strayed far from her. He did not ask whether her dreams had been troubled by Pain's milky eyes, did not speak of the search parties scouring alleys for a phantom boy with a pale, eyeless face. Instead, he watched the angle of her wrist, the pressure of blade on stone, testing where fear might live in the small muscles of her hand. When the edge shone keen as a glass needle, he nodded once, poured 2 chipped cups, and motioned toward the crooked ladder to the roof. They perched on warped shingles, steam from their cups, spiraling into air thick with smoke from the tanneries. Below, the silk district blossomed like a rotting flower. Bright silks above mud-brown stems of alley. Trant would come, as nightly as the moon, flanked by guards proud of their swords yet dulled by routine. Arya had observed them thrice since her aborted attempt. One with a lazy eye that drifted toward any skirt, the other a tall bravo who wore his gilded scabbard more for swagger than swift draw. Routine breeds weakness, Jaqen said, and weakness invites the god. They spent that morning practicing misdirection. Jaqen scattered pebbles across floorboards and commanded Arya to cross the loft, without shifting a single stone. He blindfolded her, swung bags of sand from ropes so they drifted unpredictably across her path, teaching her to listen for breath and motion, to see with skin. She failed again and again, tapping a pebble into roll, or colliding with a silent pendulum that spilled sand in a whisper. Each failure spun frustration into her belly, though Jaqen's composure never cracked. He merely adjusted the rope's length, or moved the pebbles one finger width, then bade her begin anew. By midday, her calves trembled from crouching steps, but at last she threaded the maze untouched, sweat coursing into her hooded eyes. Jaqen unknotted the blindfold, and his slow smile was rare as a snowdrop in desert. "Now," he murmured, "let the girl teach the night how to dance." They broke fast on fried oatcakes while clouds gathered, promising rain come dusk. Jaqen laid a bundle of cloth between them, clothes stolen from the washing lines behind the peach, a dove-gray shift, lace collar, and a ribbon of aquamarine silk. "The house dresses its blossoms in sky colors tonight," he said. "A girl will blossom too. Beauty blinds more swift than wine." Arya scowled at the notion of beauty. Beauty chained women like Sansa to corsets and curtsies. But she understood masks could be silk as much as wood. She scrubbed her face until her freckles vanished under soot, then rubbed rose oil into cheeks to soften the grime's edge. Jaqen mixed crushed berries with lampblack, painting her lips a bruised violet that transformed her mouth into a strange woman's smile. They bound her slender chest with a band of linen, not to conceal but to flatten angles, so the shift's scooped neckline suggested youthful promise rather than fullness. Lastly, he draped the aquamarine ribbon across her brow, tucking loose strands of hair so it cascaded like a river over her ears. When she peered into the tarnished glass hung from a rafter, a stranger stared back, neither boy nor maiden, but a creature of twilight, eyes glinting with secrets. She flexed fingers, half expecting to see claws where nails were. Jaqen met her gaze in the mirror. "Names are threads," he said, touching the ribbon's knot. "Pull softly, and the whole tapestry unravels." Late afternoon, they slipped into Flea Bottom's crowds. Rain began as a mist and thickened to a steady shower, turning streets sluggish. "Perfect," Jaqen whispered. Water-veiled faces, blurred silhouettes. They parted near Cobbler Square, Arya moving alone beneath a weather-spotted parasol borrowed from the brothel's laundry. She adopted the slow shuffle of a girl tired by long hours of pleasing men, shoulders curved yet eyes roving. Drizzle spattered her lashes, and she tasted rust upon her tongue, memory of pain's blood. But she swallowed the taste and walked on. The peach's lanterns already flickered, halos smeared by rain. A piper stood beneath the awning, music lilting like a cat's purr. Arya touched the ribbon at her brow. Sir Meryn favored childlike innocence, whispered the gossip. Tonight she would be innocence given flesh. Inside, smoke coiled thicker than before, sweet with powdered amber and cloves. The madam, Lady Morell, glided forth, rings flashing. She squinted, perhaps uncertain if the newcomer belonged to her stable. Arya dipped a curtsy, head down. "Sent from Roseanne," she murmured, voice soft as warmed milk. Jaqen had taught her the accent of Taroshi silk girls, vowels wide, consonants gliding on breath. Morell pursed painted lips, considered. Rainy nights meant coin thinned. Another pretty would not sour the broth. She nodded, waved toward the atrium where candles shimmered on mirrored walls. "Wait there, sweet." A lordling fresh from camp and eager for gentler sport. Arya obeyed. Her heart thudded like hooves across snow. On a velvet chaise she perched, arranging skirts to hide the sheath strapped high upon her thigh. The mask she wore was no carved veneer, but the studied tilt of her head, the demure flutter of lash. She counted breaths, each a step on sharpened wire. 2 guards appeared downstairs, rain dripping from cloaks. Sir Meryn's watchers. They shook water free, barked for wine. The tall one leaned near a buxom redhead, whispering of tourney glories. The lazy-eyed guard ambled toward the privies, scratching his belly. Moments later, the night arrived. Sir Meryn Trant still bore last night's wine-pink flush. He strode with a bully's swagger, pushing aside a lad in page livery. A fresh welt marred his left cheek, where some earlier companion had perhaps slapped him. Evidence the knight enjoyed rough sport. Morel minced forth, took his gauntlet, and gestured to the balcony room reserved for his tastes. Trant ascended, boots squeaking on lacquered stair, cloak brushing scented curtains. Morel returned, eyes scanning her girls like a butcher weighing cuts. She beckoned Arya. "You, pale dove." The moniker stung, but Arya rose meekly. The madam tutted, straightening ribbon, adjusting shift to reveal the faintest angle of collarbone. "Please him," and coin falls like gold leaves. She guided Arya up the stair, perfumed air thickening with each step. At Trant's door, Morel rapped twice, ushered her inside, then drifted away. The chamber smelled of wet dog and sandalwood. One lantern burned low, casting amber pools. Trant unbuckled sword belt, tossed it upon a chaise. His eyes flicked over Arya, calculating, hunting softness. She lowered lashes shyly and stepped into light. "Well?" Trant drawled, voice graveled. "What's this? Thought I asked for the blonde with curls." Arya swallowed, feigning timid dread. "My lord, Mistress Roseanne fell ill. I'm to please you in her stead." He grunted. Rain pattered lattice windows. "Turn." She obeyed, rotating slowly so he could appraise. Needle-thin terror pierced her, but she let it sharpen purpose, not slice resolve. His gaze lingered on her flat chest, parted lips. A smile ghosted across his face. "Wolfish." "Come closer." She stepped forward. Trant reached, brushing fingertips along her cheek. The contact chilled her more than winter wind. Pretty as a morning bloom. His breath reeked of onions and ale. He tugged ribbon free. Hair spilled messy. Delight twitched his scar. "You blushed when I spoke. Do you fear me?" "Yes, my lord," she whispered. "Good." Fingers traced her collar. "Fear makes girls behave." Lightning flashed, brightening room to bone white. In that instant, Arya saw herself mirrored in Trant's eye. A slip of a girl, victim waiting. Anger flared, molten and clear. She tamped it down. Soon, but not yet. Trant unfastened breastplate strap, grunting. Grease slicked his jerkin. He half-turned to place armor on a side table. One heartbeat of distraction. Arya's left hand slid beneath skirts, fingers closing around ivory hilt. She pivoted gracefully, as if to help remove his cloak. Steel whispered free. In fluid motion learned among pendulums, she stepped into his shadow. Dagger angled upward. Trant sensed movement, turning. A frown, not yet alarm. Her blade kissed the hollow at his throat where mail ended and soft flesh began. She drove upward, feeling cartilage part. Warm gout spattered her palm. Trant's eyes widened, mouth shaping a wordless question. She pressed closer, twisting, severing voice before scream. His hands flailed, strength enormous. One cuffed her shoulder, numbing arm. But blood sprayed, slickening floor. He staggered. Guards below would hear nothing over storm's roar and laughter's swell. Arya guided his fall toward chaise so impact muffled. He gurgled, limbs spasming. She knelt astride, dagger poised to thrust again, yet his gaze already dimmed. She leaned near, whispering too soft for any ear but his departing soul. "The wolf sends her regards." The eyes that once leered at Sansa glazed. When his chest stilled, Arya rose, wiping blade on duvet. Blood-dotted shift. A blossom pattern. She retrieved ribbon, knotted hair anew. No frantic pounding of boots echoed. The guards remained at drink. She scanned room, sword belt on chaise. Quickly, she rummaged, finding purse heavy with silver stags. She took 3 coins. 3 lives, 3 coins. Then replaced the rest. She lifted his sword, considering, but the weight was unyielding. She left it leaning like a redundant monument against the vanity. The door handle turned. She slipped behind heavy drapes just as Lazy Eye lurched in, complaining of bladder. He froze, seeing Night sprawled bloodied. "Sir." Soft plead. He advanced 2 steps. Shock yoked his voice to throat's half. He felt a knees keening. Arya watched through drape slit, breath still. Squire reached to shake corpse. When head lolled and wound gaped, he screamed, "I panic." The tall guard thundered up, curse bursting. Arya slid from balcony railing, descending ivy trellis to courtyard, while screams rent brothel. Rain masked her flight. She landed among milkweed, ankle twisting, but adrenaline spurred her on. Down twisting alley, across plank bridging sewer sluice, over market wall. She discarded blood-speckled shift into midden, donned homespun tunic hidden in parcel Jaqen had left beneath barrel. By the time bells tolled outside city watch barracks, she was merely a wet street urchin scurrying beneath eaves. She reached the loft at dawn's first gray smear. Jaqen awaited, seated cross-legged before 3 candles. 2 burned out, 1 flickered. Without a word, she dropped 3 silver stags into his palm. "A girl has paid," he said gently, then folded her into cloak that smelled of myrrh. Exhaustion swamped her bones, but sleep refused her. Images of trance, dying eyes stitched to lids. Jaqen brewed poppy seed tea. She drank, slipping into heavy slumber where snow wolves howled across frozen ponds. When she woke at midday, sun pressed hot through shutters. The 3rd candle lay melted, quenched. Carts clattered outside. Whispers flew of the queen's wrath, of gold cloaks tearing down the peach's velvet drapes, arresting every girl. No description of the killer matched any face. The rumor morphed. A demon ape, a hooded shadow, a child ghost. Each telling drifted further from truth until mystery itself became armor. Yet Arya knew the queen would coil her circle tighter. Cersei's paranoia was fruit rotting quicker once bruised. 2 strokes against her house in 2 moons could only spur vicious remedy. Cersei's name now burned brightest. 1 life left to close the bargain sworn at Harrenhal. But the fortress of the Red Keep was a nest of spears. To touch the queen might spill waves of innocent blood, drowning Sansa as surely as Cersei. Arya mulled this truth like a bone between teeth, restless. Jaqen knelt beside her pallet that evening, handing a scroll sealed in plain wax. "A door appears," he said. Inside, in neat Bravosi strokes, was a list of kitchens provisioning the royal feast 5 nights hence for Lord Paxter Redwines, envoys desideraries. 1 kitchen, for sweets, sat under the maiden vault. A warren of corridors far from main patrols, used mostly by serving girls. "The wine for sugared peaches travels this route," Jaqen whispered, fingertip tracing map lines. A single drop of tears of lice turned sweetness to sleep. Sleep to stillness. No blood, no search, no blame. Only grief blamed on indulgence. Once the lioness sleeps forever, her cub becomes prey for every wolf. Arya shook her head. She must know death. She must look into my eyes the way my father looked into hers. She remembered Sept Baelor. The balcony. Cersei's half-smile as steel whispered at Ned Stark's neck. The memory still woke her some nights crying. Poison is too kind. Jaqen studied her, lake still. Kindness or cruelty matters not to the god, only balance. Poison spares those around the prey. Steel may spare none. Dadden see. Then I'll carve a path of 1, Arya said. No innocence. Innocence is a mask even the guilty can wear, murmured Jaqen. Yet a girl decides. He folded map, slipped into satchel. 3 dawns remain. Think. That night, Arya wandered docks where brine tang cooled her fury. Ships creaked, gulls screeched. She pictured Cersei stepping from litter. Lannister crimson sweeping marble, crown glinting torchlight. The queen rarely walked corridors unattended, yet there was one duty Cersei performed alone. Midnight prayer in the Sept cell reserved for her late children. Rumors told of her kneeling before tiny stone tombs, whispering threats disguised as lamentations. No guards flanked her in that sacred place, only candles and ashes of lost babes. Could death wear a saint's pardon her there? Arya returned to loft, breath stinging from cold. Jaqen sat whittling a new mask, slimmer, edges curved like petals. He looked up as she entered. Septri, she said. 8 midnight. His knife paused. Sacred ground. Was sacred until she stained it with lies. Jaqen nodded once. Acceptance. A girl will need habit of novice, torch, key of bronze. He opened cedar box, produced blank wood disc. And a face, not yet shaped. Days were whirlwind. Bribing a stable boy to deliver sealed directive forged by Jaqen's quill, claiming the Sep's oil lamps needed refill due to feast. Filching bronze keys from armory under guise of cleaning. Stealing dove-gray novice robes from laundress line. Altering hem to fit Arya's height. With Jaqen's dyes they bleached her hair onion pale, dusted cheeks with flour to lend sickly devout pallor. From market they procured vial of widow's blood. A thick crimson potion that clotted breathing when poured down throat. Not poison, rather a grisly paint. Arya would mark Cersei's brow with symbol of mother's mercy, then slash carotid so blood sang prayer back. On eve of plan, they rehearsed route through servants' tunnel behind Queensgate, down spiral where bricks wept salt, crawl space where little-fingered statues hid keyhole, then the stair of sighs ascending to Septry porch. Jaqen walked steps thrice, timing guard patrols by hour bells. He taught Arya to mimic novice gait, modest, slow sway, hands folded at navel. They practiced until she could pass him in corridor, and he might not know her. The final afternoon bled gold across rooftops. Arya sat sharpening needle anew, though she would wield a curved razor stolen from barber's kit, easier to conceal than sword. She whispered list, now halved. Pain, Trant, and one name yet bright. She wondered if Ned Stark watched, if he approved. She hoped his honor bent for vengeance's weight. When evening bells tolled compline, she donned habit. Jaqen pressed a finger to her heart. One door closes, many open. Choose where to walk next. She tucked widow's blood vial inside sleeve pocket. Torch she would claim from alcove near Septide. Key wrapped in scrap linen. Razor slid into sash. With hood raised, she slipped into street. Dusk hush broken by festival drums. Lord Redwing's fleet had docked. Revelers spilled wine in anticipation. At Rivergate, she joined procession of Septide servants crossing bridge to castle. None questioned pale novice bearing censer. Incense smoke curled, hiding her face. Inside the keep, corridors glistened candle bright. She cast eyes down, counting marble tiles. 1, 2, 3, left turn. 4, 5, stare. At bottom arch Jaqen waited disguised as potboy. Nod subtle. All as planned. Patrol 15 heartbeats, distant. She glided onwards. In Queen's Prayer Hall, unseen sisters sang matins early. Voices echoing. Arya passed open arch, pulse racing. Soft chorale masked her footfalls. She reached Maidenvall's side passage, a disused gallery smelling of dust and rose oil residue. Torches bracketed walls intermittent. She plucked unlit one, struck spark to it using striker hidden behind tapestry. Flame sighed alive, hollowing her in gold. Stair of sighs rose narrow, worn smooth by centuries of penitence. She ascended, torch crackling. Halfway landing, she paused to listen. Nothing but wind moaning through arrow slit. She climbed again. At top, teak door carved with 7-pointed star, barred entry. She withdrew key, bronze bit slid home softly. Turn, click. Hinge groaned faint. She eased door open. The sceptry of lost children lay dim, ringed by votive candles. 7 tiny stone sarcophagi encircled a white marble mother cradling baby, swaddled in rose petals. The air smelled of beeswax and grief. Arya extinguished torch and wall bracket, preferring gloom. She stole behind statue, listening. Soon Queen would come alone as nightly. She crouched in shadow. Razor glint sheathed. Her heartbeat drummed slow, determination tempered to ice. She rehearsed steps. Approach from behind kneeler, mark brow red, silence throat. Cradle head downward to stem spray. Retreat through vent gruel Jaqen had loosened earlier. Down chute to scullery, into midnight air. Footsteps. Light footfalls, yet heels clicking marble. Different from heavy golden shod steps of Queen. Arya tensed. A figure entered, not in velvet or crown, but in plain hemp robe. blonde hair unbound. The queen? No. This woman younger, high-boned cheeks, eyes downcast. A novice. The girl carried basin of water, set it beside sarcophagus, began scrubbing grime from base. Her candle flickered. Arya cursed silent. She had not foreseen cleaning duty. Time dwindled, queen's arrival near. She considered slitting this girl's throat, quick, quiet, but revulsion clawed. No. That innocent blood, not hers to spill. The novice hummed soft hymn while wiping. Arya watched, mind racing. Perhaps Circe would forgo prayers tonight amid feast, or arrive late when cleaning done. She waited. 10, 20 heartbeats. Corridor beyond remained still. The novice rose, rotated basin, humming. Arya's left foot cramped. She shifted weight. A shard of candlelight caught blade's edge within her sleeve, glinting across chamber. Novice gasped, turning. Their eyes met. Arya leapt, clamping hand over the girl's mouth. They wrestled behind statue, candle toppling, rolling. The novice writhed, slender, terrified. Arya whispered, "Quiet. Quiet." But panic thundered. The girl bit her palm, pain sparked. Arya pressed harder, muffling scream. In seconds, queen's guards might hear. A choice sharp as lightning. Kill or release. Arya's fingers tightened on razor hilt. But the novice's eyes were green, wide, same green as her mother's. A memory of Lady Stark reading by fire. That green stilled Arya's hand. She hissed, "Sleep," then swung hilt against temple. The girl sagged, unconscious. Arya eased her down, heart hammering. No blood spilled, only bruise. She dragged novice behind sarcophagus, hid her amid votives. Time evaporated. She peered around statue. No footsteps yet, but distant roar of feast. Perhaps the queen would not come. Maybe news of Trant's murder kept her drinking in solar. Fate twisting again, mocking. A tick echoed. Door latch rattled. Arya flattened into shadow. The door opened. Candlelight haloed golden braids, but not Circe's. This hair short-cropped, belonging to a stout woman, imperial purple-sashed, septa scalera, Arya later learned. The septa entered, carrying ledger and quill. She knelt, began counting candles, muttering numbers. Another obstacle. Arya cursed softly. Was Septri never empty? She could wait until both left, but night advanced and guard rotations changed. Risk soared. Poison and wine almost seemed wiser. She flexed razor, weighing creed against practicality. Septa approached basin, found novice absent. Brow furrowed. She called a name softly, steps advancing deeper. Soon, she'd spot unconscious girl. Arya's pulse raced. If Septa raised alarm, all undone. Suddenly faint clamor rose from corridor, drunken shouting, clash of silver. Scalera paused, scowling, then stomped toward door to chastise noise. As she yanked door, 2 inebriated Lannister guards spilled through, grappling over a wineskin, oblivious to sacred quiet. Out. Septa barked, swatting helm. Guards stumbled back, laughing, dropping skin which burst, wine splashing floor scarlet. In chaos, Arya saw thread to weave. While Septa screeched, she slipped from shadow, scaling marble mother's back. Swinging onto high ledge ringed the chamber. Candles flickered below. Heat licked calves. From vantage, she spotted vent grill opposite door. Her planned exit. 5-yard leap across narrow archway. She sheathed razor, crouched. Septa dragged guards out, slamming door. Alone again. Save unconscious novice. Arya bounded arch to arch, silent, except for soft thud of leather soles. She reached grill, tugged loose. It squealed faint, but thunder of feast music drowned. She slipped inside tunnel, grate swinging shut behind. Dust choked nostrils, dark pressed like wool. She crawled downward into guts of keep, every heartbeat thundering queen's name still unslain. In scullery shaft, dim torches flickered. She emerged behind sacks of flour, brushing cobwebs. Failure again. She clenched fists till nails bit palms. But no alarm rang. Queen still breathed, unwary. Arya returned to loft by hidden ways. Heart a storm. Jaqen sensed outcome by her footsteps. A mask. Slipped. No, she snapped. The castle kept flinging faces at me. She paced. She's never alone. She will be. All are in truth. Even a queen. Then tell me when, Arya hissed. Jaqen poured wine, offered. She drank deep, bitter tang grounding. He unrolled fresh parchment. Schedule of feast day 2 hence. Cersei to visit dungeons at dawn to question new spy, captured among red wine servants. Only 2 guards accompany. Corridor narrow, lit by single brazier. Oubliette stairs behind tapestry. Stone walls echo, Jaqen warned. But fear hollow sound. Dawn infiltration required disguise of jailer boy. Arya studied plan, nodding. Razor useless against mail. She needed puncture that spoke swift. Jaqen produced stiletto of fine Kuhoric steel. Blade slender as quill. Tip hollowed to deliver drop of manticore venom. Paralysis, then heart burst. No blood, he said. Face to face still granted. She accepted weapon. Night soared toward morning, while they rehearsed. She learned to twirl ring of keys, slouch board. Jaqen taught pressure points along spine where venom quickest. At first light they slept brief. Feverish. Feast day dawned crimson, sun rising through sea mist like bleeding pearl. Arya donned rough-spun tunic, breeches tied with rope belt, keys jangling. She blackened nails, greased hair. Jaqen etched soot, smudge across cheek, scabbed knuckles with berry paste, perfecting low-born illusion. He clasped her shoulder. Last door. She slipped through sleepy city to Trader's Gate, where provisions entered. She joined throng of cooks, blending stench of onions. Inside dungeons corridor air chilled, torches sputtered. She walked with confidence born of endless drills. No one challenged. At Oubliette stair she waited behind burlap sacks as sunrise bled through murder holes. Time crawled. At last, echo of boot heels. 3 sets. She peered through hanging tapestry. Queen Cersei flanked by twin guards, torchbearer ahead. She wore hunter green gown, simple knife-edged crown, face drawn, sleepless. She dismissed torchbearer at cell arch. Only guards remained. They unlocked gate. Queen descended gloom, silk whispering. Arya inhaled. She moved. Keys clink on belt like songbirds as she approached gate. One guard glanced, uninterested. Jailer lads, common. Arya bowed slightly, watching Queen vanish below turn of stair. Guard turned back forward. Arya's stiletto flicked, slipping through gap between gorget and ear. Venom kissed flesh. Guard twitched, wide-eyed. She eased him down, sliding sword from grasp as convulsion seized. He died soundless. Second guard heard faint metal, pivoted. Arya hurled keys, ring struck visor, clanging distraction. Guard raised shield. She darted inside reach, stabbing armpit joint thrice. Steel found blood. He swung, gashing air. She rolled under, slashed hamstring. He collapsed, groaning. Quick throat, pierce stilled him. 2 bodies, slump. Corridor quiet. Below, Cersei's voice echoed, sharp, interrogating prisoner unseen. Arya crept down stair. Stiletto slick. Candles along wall cast tremulous light. At mid-landing she paused. Scene below revealed Queen standing before cell, back turned, speaking through bars. No guards. Arya descended final steps, heart lethal calm. She approached, blade poised. Stone underfoot groaned. Queen half turned, surprise flickering. What? Arya lunged, plunging stiletto beneath left collarbone, straight into heart. She met green eyes bright with shock. For Ned, she whispered. Cersei staggered, mouth opening. No sound came. Venom seized lungs. She fell against bars, clawing. Arya withdrew blade, wiped on silk train. Queen slid to floor. Gold crown ringing stone. Arya watched until eyes dulled. A decade of fear cracked like ice. She exhaled long. Shouts rose above, guards discovering bodies. She sprinted upstairs opposite side where old escape tunnel gaped. Mapped nights earlier. Footfalls thundered behind, but she was arrow swift, heart weightless. Through sluice, up drain, out postern to dry moat. Dawn sunlight warmed face as bells began tolling frantic inside castle. She ran, laughter bubbling tears. Downhill, across market, into labyrinth of shanties. When she burst through loft door, Jaqen awaited, expression unreadable. 3 lives, he said quietly. Arya nodded, trembling sob. She dropped stiletto into his palm. He placed iron coin beside it. The one she'd given. Debt paid both ways. A girl owes nothing. She met his gaze. And what of you? A man is no one, he replied, smiling hint. He pressed coin into her hand anew. When path darkens, speak its name. She stared at metal, weight different now. Ticket to future unknown. Outside, King's Landing roared with chaos. Inside loft, silence hummed like promise. She realized ledger of names lay blank, debts settled. Yet her heart still listed others. The Hound, Melisandre, those who wronged. But tonight, she was full. She was Arya Stark, and nobody both. And free. Jaqen packed satchel. A man departs with dawn tide. A girl? Arya looked toward eastern sky where pale light gilded distant hills. Rode home, perhaps. She sheathed needle, tied coin at throat. A wolf seeks the north. Jaqen's smile seemed proud. He stepped to window, and when morning sun breached, he was gone like breath on glass. Arya remained, solitary yet whole. She drew hood, descended ladder, merged with street's frenzy. Bells clanged warning. Ravens circled keep. Small folk whispered of queen struck by justice unseen. Amid uproar, one small figure strode northward, leaving behind masks, leaving behind vengeance. In her pocket, iron coin tapped rhythm of new possibilities, and though the road stretched long and cold, the wolf within walked unafraid, for she had learned the faces of death and chosen, at last, her own. Word count. U 5050. Ka, a gay, send goro. The northbound road unfolded before Arya, like a ribbon drawn tight between ragged hedgerows and stunted oaks left scorched by summer's long drought. She traveled at first amid the welter of small folk fleeing the city's upheaval. Fishwives bundling babes, cobblers clutching their awls, half-stripped sellswards, who had once swaggered atop the city walls and now slunk for fear of vengeance. News of Queen Cersei's death flew quicker than ravens, yet every retelling reshaped the tale. Some swore she choked on a grape, others that Tyrion cut her throat, still others that the gods struck her down for sins. Among the press of rumor and dust, Arya's hooded figure went unnoticed, a pale spark tucked beneath the ash of panic. By second dusk, the stragglers thinned. She left the King's Road, veering into a forest track Jaqen had marked on a grease-stained scrap. The path wound through thorn thickets alive with cicada buzz, then dipped under fir boughs draped with wisps of gray beard moss. Alone beneath the green vault, she felt the city's stink peel away like old varnish. Here the air smelled of sap and hidden springs. Only when the hush settled did Arya realize how tightly she had clenched her jaw, how fast her pulse still galloped. She slowed her breathing, conjuring the water dancer's mantra, swift as shadow, light as leaf. Yet shadows remembered kill rooms, leaves whispered of empty crowns. She shook free those echoes and renewed focus on the road ahead. At dusk she found a hunter's lean-to half collapsed beside a marsh where frogs thrummed. 3 small garpikes hung gutted from a rail, abandoned. Perhaps the hunter had smelled war on the wind and fled south. She kindled a tiny fire, careful to hollow a bed in moist earth, then roofed the flame with flat stones. Smoke rose dull blue. She cooked fish, ate flesh charred and split by bone, and let hunger fade. Beside the embers, she set the iron coin. Moonlight glazed its pitted face, a man's features half erased. She rolled it between thumb and finger, remembering Jaqen's last glance, approval tinged with something like sorrow. Or was that illusion? She tucked coin away before doubt could coil. Sleep came fitful. In dreams, pale masks drifted across black water. Eyes hollow stars, calling her name in voices that were her mother's, her father's, the ones she had silenced. She woke taut, dagger in fist, to a dawn swaddled in mist. Night sounds hushed. Only the marsh breathed. She broke camp quickly, scattering ashes, then buried fish bones and trod north. 3 days passed. Each stretched longer than the last, as though the land itself resisted her stride. She glimpsed burned farmsteads, charred beams clawing sky, shattered carts left to rot. Wolves had come before her. Cloven hoofprints mingled with paw tracks deep as a knight's gauntlet. She found one corpse devoured to ribs, cloak still in tatters of crimson and gold. A Lannister outrider. She knelt, pried loose his dagger, cleaned it in wet grass, and moved on. The 4th day brought chill drizzle. She followed a brook that sang against slate, trusting it would feed into the tumblestone. Around midday, hoofbeats echoed. She slipped behind willow roots, crouching with breath held. 5 riders emerged, 2 in mailed hauberks, 3 in quilted jacks. Their badges were black stags upon green, but weather-faded fabric until crest looked gray. They spoke of bandits up the trail, of the wolf girl rumor, of Lady Celeste's iron grip upon Dragonstone half a world away. Arya waited until hoof rattle faded, then stalked after at a distance, curiosity prickling. Were they Stannis' men? If so, would they harm a Stark? She could not know. She veered east, through thicket, until riders' voices turned to memory. That night she built no fire. Rain thickened, drumming leaves until forest hummed like a skin stretched over drum. She huddled beneath fallen beech, cloak soaked, hunger gnawing anew. In dark, she recited the old list, names now halved, but tradition held. With each, she paused, tasting their absence. Pain dead. Trant dead. Cersei dead. The space they left was not peace. It was hollowness, an echo chamber. Did vengeance ever fill? Arya pressed fist to sternum and felt the wolf stir but not answer. She woke to silence and a pale sliver of sunlight trembling through cloud. Her stomach clawed. She set snares for rabbits, then scouted for tracks. She found boar prints near oak roots, yet dared not pursue. Alone, a tusker might gore her. By noon one snare held bounty, a scrawny hare. She gutted, skewered, roasted quick over twig flame. Grease soothed ache. Later, she reached the tumblestone. Its waters rolled brown and swift, swollen by recent rains. A logjam straddled rocks mid-channel, forming slippery bridge. She tested balance. Soft-soled shoes gripping bark, but current roared threat. One slip, and she joined flotsam bound for River Run. She steadied breath, pictured Syrio smiling, fear cuts deeper than swords. She skipped across in 4 nimble bounds, knees quivering only after firm ground found. Beyond river, the land felt different, air cooler, breeze smelling faintly of pine and far-off snow. She was leaving the south, step by step. Toward dusk she spied torchlight flickering among birches. Voices drifted, echoing laughter, clank of mugs. She edged closer, weaving through fern gloom. A camp of 8 men clustered round iron braziers. Their shields bore a hollow white star upon russet field. House Vance. She recalled Maester Luwin's lessons. Vance's ruled wayfarers' rest, long loyal to Tully. Safe, perhaps, but trust was a blade's edge. She might declare herself Arya Stark and earn escort, or be ransomed to whichever house bid highest once they saw coin sewn in Jaqen lining. She slipped away unseen, but fate curved path. As she crested next ridge, thunder rumbled, sky split, rain slashed sideways. She stumbled into ravine where wind howled so fierce it stripped warmth from marrow. Cloak sodden, hair plastered. She sought shelter. No cave appeared, only a toppled carriage half buried in mud. Wheels broken, chestnut paint blistered. She forced door, found cramped space where straw and torn silk cushions lay strewn. She curled small, teeth chattering. Lightning painted jagged runes on carriage walls. Thunder shook wood. Fear pressed close. Not of weather but of stillness to come if she froze. She dozed fitful, woke to softer patter. Storm had trudged east. Dawn light seeped through cracked roof. Arya emerged stiff, joints aching. Outside, ravine glistened, littered with branches and wet quartz. She wrung water from cloak, then noticed fresh footprints. Boot prints circling carriage. Too small for men, likely bandit scouts or vagrants rummaging for loot. She stilled breath, listening. Nothing but drip, 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 dot. She hurried uphill, scanning. Near noon, she found deer trail leading northwest. She followed. By evening, smoke plume curled above trees. She crept to edge of clearing. A stone inn stood by crossroads. Signboard carved with green apple. 2 wagons penned horses beneath lean-to. She weighed risk, warmth and broth versus a crowd scrutiny. Her reflection in puddle showed hollowed cheeks, bruises beneath eyes, hair a tangle of ash and straw. I, hardly a high-born girl now. She decided to brave the inn. Inside, hearth's glow spread gold. Smell of pepper stew made her dizzy. She slunk to corner table near keg stacks. A portly innkeep approached, frowning at bedraggled youth. Room's 2 pennies, due another. Arya produced copper Jaqen had left. City coins but coin all the same. He brought bowl brimming with carrots, barley, bits of mutton that melted on tongue. She ate slow, savoring. Voices murmured around. Merchants debating tolls at the twins. Hedge knights lamenting queen's death meaning Frey's rise. Crofter complaining wolves thicker this year. A bald man with ink-stained fingers addressed neighbors. I tell you boy king's missing. Some say Iron Throne stands empty while lords scramble. Arya's ears pricked. Joffrey vanished? Another rumor perhaps. Yet kingdoms trembled when rumor enough. Later, as patrons dozed by embers, Arya drifted to loft where cots lined rafters. She laid cloak as blanket, curled. Dreams came fierce. She walked Winterfell's halls but torches bled green, guards wearing many masks. Bran called her name from broken tower, yet each step forward stretched corridor longer, dent. Waking in gray hush, she found nails dug crescent moons in palms. She departed before dawn. Innkeep half asleep waved when she left, muttering, God's keep. Road forked, northeast toward the twins and Frey soldiers, northwest through fens to Maidenpool then White Knife of Trident, or north by river trail less traveled. She chose river. During midday rest, she caught movement amid reeds, 2 youths trailing her at distance, blades low. Their ragged cloaks bore no sigil. She pretended not to notice, walked slower, letting them gain. At bend, where willows drooped, she slid behind trunk, as though to relieve herself. 1 foot crushed dry twig. Men quickened. She pressed back, dagger ready. The first bandit rounded trunk, grinning tooth gap. He saw small girl, drooled greed. Fancy blade for chick, he rasped. Arya feigned fear, lowering gaze. Second man flanked. When tooth gap reached, she thrust up, piercing hollow beneath chin. Blade grated skull. He jerked, gurgled. She pivoted on heel, kicked knees of the second, slashed across brow. Blood blinded him. He howled. She stabbed throat clean. Both collapsed in leaf mold. She wiped dagger on fern, pulse steady. Not vengeance, only survival now. She searched pockets. 2 dirty coins, a crumb of cheese gone blue. 1 ruby ring, obviously stolen. She pocketed coins, left ring to rot. She dragged corpses behind bramble, covering with branches. River would scent soon, but she'd be long gone. Toward dusk the road widened, ruts fresh from carts. She smelled smoke of town. Sign read Holford, a hamlet perched by ferry crossing. She skirted wide, for soldiers garrison there might question loners. Instead, she camped on hill of sun-bleached heather. Next sunrise she startled awake to hoof clatter below. 6 knights of the Bloody Gate rode east, veil shields catching dawn. Their commander barked orders about meeting Lady Brienne's envoy at Derry. Arya's heart skipped. Brienne, the tall wench rumored friend of Sansa's savior hound? She almost hailed them, but caution ruled. She watched shapes fade. 2 days later, she reached ruins of a sept at Old Ford. A half-fallen bell tower jutted like a snapped bone. Within cracked nave, travelers left offerings. Clay idols, candles, dried flowers. She knelt before weather-smooth altar, though she no longer prayed. Instead, she unwrapped needle, laid blade across stone. Light from stained glass shard-painted steel violet. She whispered, "Father, keep me." She had not spoken his name aloud since the queen's fall, for fear memory might crumble. Now the words felt right. She sheathed sword, rose. Wind carried distant howl, wolf song riding dusk. Arya's blood quickened. She followed call over ridge to moor dotted with standing stones. On ridge crest she halted. Across valley, a great white direwolf loped between gorse clusters, tail plumed silver. Ghost? No. Ghost stayed with John at wall. Yet the beast's size rivaled Beggar King's pony. It paused, head lifting, sniffing breeze. Eyes like liquid amber locked on her through half-mile gloom. Recognition sparked. She stepped closer, heart thundering. Nymeria. The direwolf whined low, backing. Pack shapes smaller flanked. Feral companions born of years alone. Arya raised open palms. "Girl's back," she whispered. But distance swallowed words. After heartbeat frozen, Nymeria huffed, then turned, melting into mist with pack in wake. Arya felt stitch of ache, comfort of home glimpsed then gone. Yet hope, too. Wolves still roamed. She pressed north. Days blurred with rain and patched sunlight. She forded streams along fallen logs, bartered rabbit pelts to lonely crofters for oatcakes, listened to gossip. Edmure Tully missing. Ironborn raiding again, White Harbor at odds with Karstarks, Bolton banners near Moat Cailin. War remained chaos. One afternoon she entered abandoned orchard, where pears rotted sweet on ground. She filled satchel, munching tart flesh, juice dripping chin. Swallows darted overhead. Laughter startled her. 2 children perched in tree, tossing fruit at crow. They waved, friendly. She passed, waving back. Their innocence lingered with her like balsam scent. Rare gift. By first snow she reached neck of the trident winterlands. Mists pooled thick, ghosting reeds. At dusk, she glimpsed silhouettes of wooden palisade rising above marsh. An outpost manned by Blackwoods, if memory served. She considered seeking shelter, but feared banners changed hands. She pressed on into fen. Cold seeped through soles. Mud sucked boots. Fireflies blinked eerie. Night fell moonless. She lost path, sank thigh-deep in bog water. She cursed softly, fought free, chilled to bone. She stumbled onto hummock of cattails where charcoal remains of cookfire suggested men nearby. She risked small blaze, huddled. Stars emerged, ragged, flicking. She forgot to recite her list. She dreamed of Bran perched on weirwood throne beneath ground, eyes white, calling ravens. When she woke, frost glazed cloak. She rose early, forging west until cairns marked King's Road's return. Traffic thickened. Refugees southbound sighting, Bolton hunts. Karstark vengeance. Arya passed them unnoticed. At dusk she shared ditch with old woman weaving baskets. Crone spoke of Winterfell's chimneys smoking again, rebuilt by Ramsay Bolton. Hatred licked Arya's gut. "Bolton flays," she said. Crone shrugged, toothless grin. Flay or feed matters little to small folk if harvest safe. Arya spat. That night she vowed Ramsay's name would join list. Snow deepened. She bought rough-spun gloves from Tinker, traded ivy berries for mended cloak. Somewhere beyond next crest Moat Cailin awaited. Chokehold to the north. Rumor told of Ironborn garrison bitter and starved but clinging. She pondered circumventing swamps or risking crossing disguised as trader's boy. She decided on river route east, where causeway rumored partly open. 3 mornings later she glimpsed crumbling towers of Moat Cailin rising like rotten teeth above tundra. Teeth. Flags sagged. A kraken still. tattered. She spied campfires. Silhouettes moved. She crouched behind dike watching. A caravan of timber wagons approached from south under white banner, quartered with spear and pine. Manderly crest. Parley maybe. She merged with tail of wagons, adopting stoop of drover. Guards barely glanced among throng. Near gatehouse studs, Ironborn shouted terms. While envoys argued, Arya slipped along moat's rim, following reed-bed collapsed wall section where rubble formed slope. She scaled, belly crawling beneath frost-slick stones. Inside walkway no patrol saw. She darted across courtyard pocked with puddles, dove into shuttered granary. There she waited hours until parley concluded, and Manderly wagons rolled within for inspection. Guards distracted. She slid out, hid upright between logs on last wagon. They rolled onward, across emptier North Causeway. She might yet see Winterfell's sky by Yule. The Manderly escort halted at dusk to water horses, near stand of sentinel pines. Arya slipped off unnoticed, melting into woods. She thanked silent gods. She had breached neck. The land smelled like memory. Pine resin, snow soot, distant hearth smoke. She ached for Winterfell's walls, but caution guided feet. Bolton flags flew there. She veered northwest toward Barrowlands, where rumors said Lady Barbary Dustin plotted revenge on Freys. Allies maybe, though unstable. Snow stung cheeks. She traveled 4 days through flurries, subsisting on squirrels and birch sap. On fifth morn, she entered Barrowton's outskirts. Once grand barrows rose, crowned by weathered stones. Fires smoked from trenches where Bolton garrison drilled. She skirted city, crossing heath under Arya range of watchtowers. That night, she camped among stones, shaped like sleeping kings. Wind moaned. She saw 2 riders approaching, torches sputtering. She hid behind cairn. They wore dusty cloaks pinned by flayed man brooches. Their talk reached her. Lord Ramsay to wed Frey girl soon. Feast will bleed, they laugh. Ramsay wedding. Another horror. Perhaps Sansa entangled. She clenched dagger hilt. They dismounted near cairn, relieving themselves. She crept silent. One turned at Russell. Too late. She slit throat quick, caught gurgle. Other spun. She rammed dagger into belly, upward carve. He gasped, eyes wide. She hissed. The North remembers. He crumpled. She rifled satchel, found letters sealed with Bolton wax. She pocketed. Under moon. She read wax with warmed blade. Inside orders, deliver flayed Ironborn banners for display at Winterfell before ceremony. Ensure threat plain. She burned letter. Snow thickened. She trudged north, letter's knowledge fueling purpose. She would reach Winterfell by wedding and free whoever Bolton caged, or kill Ramsay where he feasted. 2 days later, she spied ruined mill on Long Lake's edge. Smoke rose. She approached sly. Inside, men huddled round brazier. Ragged but armed with bows of yew gowen. Corin, tall with crow feather cloak, hailed. "Name?" She offered. "Aaron." They questioned accent. She fed them tale of orphan fleeing south wars. They fed her salt pork. She saw shields with ragged tree. Brotherhood without banners perhaps, but colors off. Turned out these were Barrowton rebels, sworn to Lady Dustin, plotting strike on Bolton convoy bearing bride. Leader, a scar jaw called Reed, no kin to Howland, offered chance. "We need someone small to slip inside Winterfell. Open Salaport when horns call. Can you climb?" She agreed, though trust thin. They traveled under new moon across plains, avoiding sentries. Near dusk they reached tumble of rocks 1 league from Winterfell. Broken keep silhouette rose, banners flayed man beneath leering flayed man. Smoke curled from rebuilt chimneys. Snow dusted parapets. Plan. At third night watch Arya scale ash tree by outer wall. Enter through arrow slit left unbarred near burned library. Navigate ramparts to Salaport chain. Unlatch when rebels signal with Ulf. Chaos during festivities. Inside, she must watch for dog cages, Ramsay's kennels. They might hold hostages. Also find Maester. Reed gave her small crossbow bolt tipped with weeping angel potion. Contact nerve agent. One scratch slows prey. Second kills. Night fell. She crawled across fir thicket, scaling ditch. Wind bit. She ascended ash tree, fingers numb. At crown she leapt to lip of wall, gripping frost-slick stone. She slid through arrow slit, into dark corridor smelling of resin and lye. Steps echo, faint doint. She padded along, alert. Feast noise distant, laughter, horns, dogs baying. She ghosted through gallery lined with new Bolton tapestries. One door cracked, drunken stable hand stumbled out, belt askew. She flattened in alcove. He tottered away, singing obscene. Near great hall, torches blazed. She glimpsed inside. Long tables, venison steaming, Bolton men roaring. On dais Ramsay Bolton lounged, black hair damp, cruel grin. Beside him, pale girl in fray silks, stared blank. Not Sansa, but some other. Sansa's fate, unknown. Arya's jaw set. She crept onward to kennels. Stench of dog and blood-churned gut. She slipped through slats, crossbow hidden. Dogs snarled but recognized lone intruder, not handler. Low growls. She scanned cages. One contained gaunt old man. Maester Lewin? No, bones, dead long. Another held mangled ironborn. No Stark. She pocketed flask of rendered fat, exit. On rampart she found Sallyport chain, rusted but functional. She waited for Horn. Minutes dragged. Fingers stiff. Suddenly below gatehouse she saw servants hauling barrels. An opportunity. Sabotage feast. She descended stair, mingled with thralls unseen. Barrels reeked of ale. She slipped angel-tipped bolt into spigot of main cask, bound for high table. One scratch enough. Returning rampart, horn blasted thrice distant. She cranked chain. Gate ground open handspan, snow swirling. Figures surged. Rebels rushing under moon, muffled cries of sentries. Arrows flew. Chaos erupted. Arya descended inner stairs, dodging clashing men. In courtyard, Ramsay's hunter dogs unleashed, mauling rebels. She darted through melee toward dais entrance. Inside hall, confusion. Guests choking on ale, some collapsing. Ramsay stood, sword drawn, eyes blazing. He shouted for guard. Arya slipped behind pillar, drawing stiletto. He stormed towards kitchens. She followed. In scullery corridor, he halted, sensing presence. He whirled as she lunged. Blade nicked cheek. Venom entering, pectoring tartan. He swung. She ducked. He snarled. Who? She slashed thigh. He staggered, strength bleeding. Venom seized nerves. He twitched. She whispered, Arya Stark. He spat. Wolf bitch. Then convulsed, dropping flaying knife. She drove stiletto into heart. His eyes widened, then dimmed. Shouts sneered. She fled through butcher's door, scaled scaffolding to roof, descended rope to outer curtain. Rebels still battled, but gate seized. Bolton formation crumbled. Some fled. She joined stream of fighters, exiting before Frey reinforcements arrived. By dawn Winterfell smoldered, banners torn. Rebels retreated northwest carrying spoils, chanting "Snow" and "Stark." Behind, flayed man standard burned upon Tower's Peak. In forest clearing rebels cheered her, though none knew true name. She slipped away before dawn's full glow, heart both buoyed and heavy. Winterfell free yet still ashes. And Sansa? Gone? She would find them. She trekked east along Ribbon River until twin peaks of Last Hearth loomed. There, rumor said, Night's Watchmen sought new Lord Commander. She might find word of Jon. Snow deepened to knee. Hunger gnawed but hope guided feet. She walked on, a lone wolf. Blades light, coin warm at throat. And though storms rose she felt a strange peace. The ledger no longer chained her. Yet her tale stretched far, and many masks yet unworn. Ahead lay Bravos perhaps, faces to borrow, lessons to master, or beyond wall with direwolves and wars of ice. Wherever path bent, she would follow, for she was Arya Stark of Winterfell, and no one, and the road belonged to her. Word count, U5300.